Hey, welcome back to Troll Time. I'm the Troll King. My name is Ivan D. Curtis. You can follow me on Facebook at Ivan D. Curtis. This is a show where we talk about sports, movies, and anything thought provoking. It's not just myself, it's with my good co host and brother, Antonio Williams. Today we'll be covering the recap of the games that took place on Wednesday with the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun and the Minnesota Lynx and the Phoenix Mercury. Also, we'll be discussing Teresa Weatherspoon, former head coach of the Chicago Sky, and the message that was put out following the Indiana Fever and Connecticut Sun game from the WNBA. Without further ado, I'm bringing in my co-host now. Hey, Willie, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing well. I know we talked about we wanted some drama. We were talking about a game three drama. That's what
Right.
we wanted to see, just so we could see how Connecticut plays, not this other stuff that's going on. But again, the great part about this league is it never ceases to bring talking points for us, man. So looking forward to getting into it, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I'm all cleared up. If you listen to the other episodes, I was fighting through. I was a little under the weather, but I went to the doctor today, man. Got some Claritin, got some Flonase, so everything is cleaned up, and I'm good to go. But man, let's hop right into it. We had two games on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, and it was the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun and the Minnesota Lynx and the Phoenix Mercury. The first game we're going to talk about, of course, none other than the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun. The Sun took the series 2-0. They won game two, 87-81. Man, it was a heated contest from beginning into the end. But even through it all, it still was a lot of good basketball. I felt it was played. A lot of people argue a lot of different things that we're going to get into, from the free throw disparity and
Right.
different things of that nature. But Alyssa Thomas, I felt like, stepped up, had a major game. I talked about it before about I feel like if her offensive output is to increase, that helps takes them to another level. She finished the game with 19 points, 13 assists, 5 rebounds. Outstanding game from her. DeWanna Bonner, 15 points, 8 rebounds. You had Mabry, she started, and she put 17 points, 6 assists. This game, nobody shot particularly well,
No.
but still, managed to put up points. They got good production off the bench, and I'm gonna let you talk about them when you get to it. Those two of your favorite ladies for the Sun that actually put in some work, and then on the other side of things, you had Caitlin Clark finished out her last game of the 2024 season with 25 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists. Aaliyah Boston had a monster game. She was 16 points, 19 rebounds, 7 for 12 from the field. She's I think one of the I think I seen the average 15 and 15 for a playoff series. I mean, hats off to her. Kelsey Mitchell didn't shoot it that well. Finished with 17 points, and man, the ending to that game was one of the craziest endings that I've seen in a while. But before we get to all of that, I want to get your take on the Indiana Fever and Connecticut Sun game two.
Man, again, we talked about at the onset of the show, like we wanted to see some drama, meaning let's see what happens in the game three. We saw some drama of a different sort that we're going to talk about. But keeping it basketball for right now, like I think for me, one of the things that was really important was, and I snuck in there in our previous episode talking about Veronica Burton, and I've talked to you offline and online about her. Also, Olivia Nelson Adota got 2 blocks off the bench. So again, getting that production, especially when Brianna Jones went down. And I think that's a key moving forward for Connecticut. How healthy is she? But yeah, getting that production off the bench and Veronica Burton playing with confidence from that point guard spot, looking to score. We already know what she's going to bring defensively, and that familiarity with Caitlin Clark, with both of them being in the Big Ten, with Veronica Burton playing at Northwestern. I think it helped a little bit, but that's Veronica Burton's nature anyway, to defend. But she was being aggressive, hitting threes, going to the rim as well. I think that really, really helped, because her going to the rim, as well as Connecticut being aggressive, just getting paint touches as well. I think that's part of the reason why we had that discrepancy in free throws. So I also felt like too in this series, OG. You tell me what you think about this. I also felt like if both teams did not play their best, Connecticut wins. Indiana had to play their best in order for them to win. Connecticut could not play their best and win a rock fight, which is what they did in game two. So, moving forward, I'll ask you about Connecticut. Do you think they could, we've seen them do this in the past, advance winning rock fights? You think
No,
they
I
do
think
that, or do you think they need to have some more offensive production like you talked about with AT?
no. I said that if she did that, it could help catapult them to another level. But they're kind of built for the rock fight, as you put it.
Right.
Like I mean, I think Mabry, she kind of put the extra umph to the rock fight. I mean, because
No question.
of course she's gonna be physical, she's gonna be emotional, wear her feelings on her sleeve, but she's also gonna get buckets, and I think
Right.
that's what they needed. It's gonna be interesting to see, and I'm gonna keep a close eye on that. Is Ty Harris.
Right.
What does that injury look like? How long is she going to be out? Is she going to return? Because I just think that's just added depth for the Sun. I mean, Ty's a scorer. She's going to play some defense, but then maybe coming off the bench is just a lot of firepower on both sides of the court that I
Right.
think they can benefit from. Now, I'm not saying Mabry is a shutdown defender, but she gives you extra fouls.
She's an
Yeah,
agitator.
yeah.
Right.
She'll play her part. But man, out of all of everything, the ending of the game, like the ending of the game, they were down one. Kelsey Mitchell shot a three, missed a three, got her own rebound, had
Right.
a chance. She literally was in layup range, and she decided to kick it back out. And they turn the ball over. Connecticut comes down, and Mabry drills basically a game daggering three.
Right.
Now, obviously, I look back at that play today, and it was crazy because Caitlin should have been Gardner, and I guess got caught up and didn't, and then maybe popped out and knocked it down. But I mean, man, it's that ended like you used to seeing that from somebody in a situation who's a non-scorer. You're not used to seeing
Right.
scorers passing out of situations like that. Like, and she's a shot taker and a shot maker, and it's just like, I just wonder. Like, I could not believe it. I was stunned. Like, I was
Right.
stunned.
Right.
I even posted a funny picture. Like, even rewind it back a little bit before that. The inbound play that Christy Sides had called, and I think I forget who was inbounding it, but they were forcing the ball inside and end up turning it over. Like, it was just a lot of bad moments for the Indiana Fever down the stretch, and it was just mind boggling. And then, you know, it's going to be interesting to see. I think the Fever has grown. I'm gonna talk about the Fever for a hot second. I'm gonna put the shine back on the Sun for advancing, but it's gonna be interesting to see where the Fever go. They brought back in. I'm looking up her name now. New basketball. Well, she's not new. The basketball operations. She was there during their heyday, and now she's coming back, and it's just gonna be interesting to see what kind of moves they make going forward. And obviously, who do they keep? Like,
Right.
I
Right.
mean, that's gonna be something to see. Going forward for the Indiana Fever. I mean, and then I was talking to my cousin earlier. does Kelsey Mitchell stay?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
I mean, with everything that's going on right now, it's really going to be interesting to see. What you know, I was get your thoughts about Caitlin, her overall season, and then what direction you see the Fever going.
So obviously, Caitlin had for a rookie had a great season, but we saw, and you talked about this when we previewed this series, the experience and the lack of experience in the playoffs at the WNBA level presented itself when we're looking at what happened with Indiana. Particularly, we talking about Caitlin. Again, that play where you talked about where she lost Marina Mabry, who, I talked to you offline a lot about Marina Mabry and said she can play on my team any day. uh,
Right.
so I say that because that lapse in just that small lapse in focus led to that big three. I think those are mistakes. Those are things that as Caitlin moves forward, that she doesn't make those mistakes, even though she has such an onus placed on her to score the ball. She's got to be close. She's got to be really dialed in defensively as you start to have these long runs in the playoffs if you want those. So for me, I think seeing that, I also think too, mixing up her game because I think she shot 3 for 12 from three. So mixing in her propensity to shoot threes as well as getting to the bucket and doing creative things as a scorer other than relying on that three. There's a little bit of predictability in her game. She wants to get left so she can get that jumper off, especially when she's shooting it from three. So teams at this level are not only physically prepared to guard that, but they dial in, they scout more because nobody's going to class, right? We just hooping.
Right.
So I so I think for her, that's another thing that she's going to have to that she is now accustomed to. She saw it, and moving forward, I think that's something that they have to address. Indiana can choose to core Kelsey if they want to. Also, too, we know about Dejanay Carrington and Nalissa Smith being a WNBA couple. Dejanay said something online about basically free my girl.
Right. Right.
So there's going to be a decision made there. Does the combination of Nalissa and Aaliyah Boston works? Does that work? Also, too, you have to. I want to see, and I love her energy, but if Timmy Fagbele is going to play minutes in Indiana, she's got to improve offensively as well. So there's lots of questions around this roster, like you said, that I think needs to be addressed. They also need some depth behind Caitlin in the backcourt, also some size on the perimeter. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Indiana, man.
Yeah, and who I was referring to earlier, um, Kelly Crosscroft.
Roscoff, yeah,
Yeah. Um, Basically, I mean, like I said, she was there in her heyday, fairly successful in the early 2000s. So Fever made postseason 13 times and played in 3 WNBA finals in 7 years. Obviously, at that time they had Lynn Dunn as coach, Tamika Catchings, and a lot of talented pieces around that organization at the time. It's going to be interesting to see does Side stay, does she go, and what type of changes that they make. Because I think they did a lot with a little, and I'm intrigued to see what they do now. To spin the wheel and get it back on the Sun. The Sun have been dominant. This is their sixth straight trip to the semifinals. They're still looking to get them one. Still have yet to win a WNBA championship. So I think a lot of people are going to be rooting for the underdog, so to speak. They had a very close game with Minnesota earlier. The last time they played, matter of fact, it came down to a Bridget Carlton three that
right.
pretty much sealed it. So it's going to be intriguing to see what happens. But like I said, hats out to the Connecticut Sun. We big Stephanie White fans over here.
Absolutely.
I actually feel like the four best coaches in the WNBA are in the semifinals. So it's going to be something to see. But hats off to Connecticut for sealing the deal. Now, getting that over to the Minnesota and Mercury matchup. Kind of went as expected. I thought Phoenix would come out and give some fight, uh, which is they did. I mean, I felt like in the first half they easily could have, kind of was controlling the game, but that third
Right.
quarter opened it up for Minnesota. I mean, Nafisa Collier, man, 42 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 14 for 20. Now, don't let me leave no numbers out. 1 steal, 2 blocks to go along with that. 14 for 20, 2 for 3 from the three, 12 for 14, which is I always talk about how crafty and sneaky she is with using her body around the rim and drawing fouls. But um, just another monster game for Nafisa Collier. Averaged 40 points thus far in the playoffs. Hey, maybe not winning MVP is little extra match. Uh,
Hakeem Olajuwon.
yeah, I'm telling you. I mean, but she, man, she has been fun to watch. Um, their team as a whole, like I said, I think they had the most complete starting five. Everybody was in double figures. They
Right.
only got 9 points off the bench. 8 of those was from Natisha Heidelman, and uh, pretty balanced. Bridget Carlton, 12 points. Elena Smith, 12 points. Kayla McBride, 15 points, and Courtney Williams, 11 points. I mean, uh, it's tough to beat. Like I said, they shot 50% from the field, 38%, almost 39% from three, and 85% from the line. Those are winning numbers any day of the week. I felt like Phoenix had a good game plan. They obviously got Brittany Griner involved. She finished with 24 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 blocks. Was 10 for 15 from the field and 1 for 2 from the three. Only shot 4 free throws though. Like that's the big part about it. Like I mean, she should if Fee is getting to the line 14, she minimum got to be getting there at least 10.
Right. Right.
For whatever the cause is. Uh, Diana Taurasi finished with 10 points. Natasha Cloud, 16 points, 10 assists, 5 rebounds. I felt like she had a monster series.
She did. She
Uh,
did.
did a lot on both ends of the court. But Sophie Cunningham only had 5 as a starter. Kalia Copper finished with 13. But just overall, and I'm definitely gonna touch base about this Phoenix team when we get into about coaches that obviously got let go, but then some are still around. And the coach for Phoenix happens to be one of them. But Natasha Mack, she had 12 points off the bench. But overall, win as expected. We both called Minnesota probably taking it serious. Just your thoughts on Game 2 of the Mercury and the Lynx.
It's funny, man. As point guards, basketball nerds, whatever you want to call it, I appreciate so much people that can be so heliocentric, meaning everything can sort of revolve around them because they're so great. But the fact that they're getting off doesn't get in the way of others getting theirs. And Nafisa Collier, with her disposition and her skill level, so versatile, so easy, but other people have room to do their thing as well. And you know this, sometimes we see great players, elite players, and hey, we got to take them every day of the week and twice on Sundays. But sometimes them getting off and doing their things comes at the expense of others feeling like they are a part of the show. And you don't get that at all from Nafisa Collier because, again, she's so efficient. Economy of movement is crazy. I sent that to you offline when I was watching Dallas play Minnesota at a game, and I literally sent to you the economy of movement and the ease of movement and the ease of Nafisa Collier's game is just, if you're a basketball nerd, you got to love it. I'm going to say this as well, man. Shout out to Courtney Williams. Courtney Williams has had a great year, steady and influence as a decision maker for Minnesota. His timely shots when she needs to. Has 6 assists in game 2 in the closeout game against Phoenix. Courtney Williams has had a really, really good year, giving you that emotional shot when you need it, and it's controlled. I feel like it just fits right into the culture of Minnesota. So I know we talked about Cheryl Reeve as coach of the year, of course. I know we've also talked about Kayla McBride being second team All W, of course. But man, Courtney Williams has had a great year. Shout out to her.
No, I definitely I agree. Um, it seems like a lot of players from a lot of different teams that landed with Minnesota. Um, they got the job done this year. Now,
Right.
most people who know that roster, you would have thought that it was going to be a rebuild. Uh,
Exactly.
and it definitely was not a rebuild. Like they kind of just locked in. I think I heard Nafisa Collier say that after a post game interview, is that everybody just locked in and willing to do whatever to get the job done, and it's definitely show improved. I thought earlier in the season when I seen them take care of the Liberty at home the first time they played, I said, yeah, they probably gonna be tough. And
Right.
I just looked at the size, the length, the skill, and when I started looking at all that, I said, man, if they can get it together, the only question mark was the point guard position. But
Right.
Courtney Williams is definitely took that away. So like now it's just
Great year.
that consistent play from the starters, contributed minutes from the bench. Um, I'm not Xing them. I actually think any one of these four teams could win it. And I wouldn't be
Right.
surprised, but I like how the Minnesota Lynx are looking, and I definitely we're gonna have a semifinals episode coming out over the weekend, but we'll dive into that. But just to give you a heads up that Connecticut and Minnesota they'll play their first game Sunday, 8:30 on ESPN, and the Las Vegas Aces play New York Liberty at 3 p.m. on ABC. Following just some things from that night, the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun game 2 was the most viewed WNBA game ever on cable. 2.5 million viewers. Now, me and A. Willie had talked about this in the preview of that whole after game 1. I said that this would probably be the highest viewed game because everybody either be saying whether Caitlin stays in the playoffs or whether they go.
Right.
And then of course you had the people out there saying basically, oh, the WNBA season is over and all that. Well, it's not over for us because we're gonna keep watching, and we're gonna
All day, every day.
keep bringing these shows and keep talking about everything that we see, whether it's in context to the playoffs or just anything that's going on around the WNBA. And we'll also be getting to other sports as well. Outside of that, the WNBA sent out a message following that game as well. And it read, the WNBA is a competitive league with some of the most elite athletes in the world. While we welcome a growing fan base, the WNBA will not tolerate racist, derogatory, or threatening comments made about players, teams, or anyone affiliated with the league. League security is actively monitoring threat-related activity and will work directly with teams and arenas to take appropriate measures to include involving law enforcement as necessary. Now, as somebody who used to work for the NBA, this is the real deal, people. Like I'm telling you, they will find you. Like
Absolutely.
they will find you. Like I mean, so a lot of these things. I also want to read a comment from my cousin, Cassie Chantel, who's a fabulous content creator herself. Is she put something into relation with that? Is that you know using the word troll to describe real people who are saying hateful things is desensitizing and dismissing the actual harm that is taking place, which is true. Now, the irony in that is me being the troll king and everything like that. Now, understand the difference is that I'm not here to poke fun at people or to degrade anybody or anything like that. A lot of my trolling that I do online, it's actually to negate people who actually say mean and nasty things online. I basically have banter with those people and make light of what they're saying and what they're doing. And
Right, right.
so, me being a troll king and trolling and different things like that is far different than what people are actually making an excuse for at the end of the day. It's a bad look, bad thing. Press conference with Alyssa Thomas and another one of her teammates where she talked about, I think it was Dejanay Carrington who
It
was
was,
with her,
yeah.
but they talked about some of the things that they experienced and things like that. And let's be realistic. I mean, has the height of the WNBA new fan base been a good thing? Yes, but it's also brought some real negative things that come along with that. And I want to see the WNBA be more proactive. The WNBA Players Association, they put out some statements where they felt like the
They
league
did.
has fell short, which is because some of these post game, uh, you know, the people of the media that's giving these interviews and asking these questions, man, some of them you can tell that where they're trying to head with a lot of the questions that they ask and different things like that, and that's no different than anybody posting any certain things just for clickbait and stuff like that. And
Right.
it's really not even necessary. I mean, the WNBA has been around 25, 26 years. It's not going anywhere. For people like myself and A. Willie and a ton of other people who enjoy the league for what it actually represents, we're going to be here regardless. So just a quick message about what you think of all that, A. Willie.
I think when you see the statement that the league made and when you see when it's late, I think this is part of the issue that a lot of the players that aren't named Caitlin Clark have an issue with and this that type of energy or when you devote energy to certain things after the fact is something again that makes players feel like I have to do twice as much, three times as much to get half the credit, to get a little bit of notoriety. And I think that's one of the things that and it lends credence to some of the complaining that players or some of the pointing out that players have made of the discrepancies or the lack of urgency in certain times. I think, and I think that's valid. I think that's valid. I think that's something that the league has to continue to address. I think one of the things that we got to keep in mind as well here, as we see all of these growing pains as it relates to the league, the W is in its 20. I think we just finished our 28th season or 27th season, and people compare it to the NBA that just finished like its 77th season. And the NBA has like a 50-year head start. They didn't see when I know people love to compare Caitlin and Angel, where they didn't see when Magic and Bird first came into the league and they played in the NBA finals, and those finals were on tape delay.
Right.
And all of the sort of growing pains that took place when the league saw this influx of growth happen, and then how the league may not have been prepared for that. I think some of the players have some valid arguments when they say the launching pad for this growth that we see now didn't just start in the 2024 NBA draft. I mean, WNBA draft. And they're right. They're absolutely right. A lot of these things that we're seeing that Angel and Caitlin, their rookie class, Rakia, Cameron, Killer, Camila Cardoza, that growth that we're seeing that this rookie class has contributed to, and they have contributed to it, that launching pad was already set. And so it does lend itself to some players and some people having some issues with that. I mean, if you look on the NBA side, there are guys that are retired in the NBA and they have issues with the salaries that the current players get. And they're like, we set the groundwork for that. I think that push pull is always going to be a part of this conversation. It makes interesting discourse. But again, for whether it's brands, whether they're leagues, because remember, we had Asia Wilson at this time, two-time MVP, already a gold medalist, two-time MVP, two-time finals MVP, two-time WNBA champion, also a champion at South Carolina as well. And Nike just dropped her logo. So, and I worked at Nike, I know how these things work. So, people that are in her camp, people that are fans of her, like, what else does she have to do just to get a logo, yet alone a signature shoe, which hopefully we'll see it come to fruition next year. But forget the shoes, she didn't have a logo. And
Right.
that was in the market. So, players that are that accomplished. Also, this woman loves the camera. The camera loves her. She has the type of energy that is great for the camera, great for marketing campaigns. So, when there is those types of, you know, I guess for lack of a better term, under usage, under leveraging, they have a problem with that. And you can't say that that's not legitimate.
Nah, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, like I said, and I said this in the beginning, way before this season, or just when I saw the way the women's game was
Right.
going, is that you can't control it. Like
Right.
you can't control it. I mean, it's a great thing, but it's also gonna come with its cons. And unfortunately, we've been seeing the ugly side of the cons and everything that it has brought. But hopefully, they get out in front of it, and we'll see where everything goes from this point. Moving forward. To swing it over, we talked about in our last episode. Kurt Miller was out at head coach at the Los Angeles Sparks, but me and A. Willie was actually going to do this episode after the game, after the next day following the games. But I told him, I said, hey, man, let's hold off and, let's see what's circulating, because I felt like something was going to happen. And then lo and behold, boom, Teresa
Man.
Weatherspoon is out as the Chicago Sky's head coach after one season. Fairly, the Chicago Sky, they finished 13-27, was in the playoff hunt for the most part throughout the season, fell short. Of course, they go the controversial Marina maybe trade opened some eyes, and then of course they dealt with some injuries earlier in the season, and then later in the season, a lot of ups and downs. She had a very young team, not only young but inexperienced. Um, it was basically a rebuild year for the Sky, and they let her go. And something to me that's always a tough thing is when an organization decides to let a coach or anything like that go, especially in a situation like this. And I just want to read what they said. After careful consideration, we have decided it is in our best interest of the organization to part ways with head coach Teresa Weatherspoon. We are deeply appreciative of Coach Spoon's contribution to the Chicago Sky and the energy and passion she brought to the head coaching role. We thank her for inspiring a competitive, resilient spirit across um, across the team, synonymous with Chicago Sky basketball. We remain steadfastly committed to being a playoff and championship contender every year, and we will be embarking on a thorough search for our next head coach. This is the kicker. Spoon will always be a part of the Skytown family, and we wish her the very best. Now, you and I know, hey, Willie, you've been in pro sports, I've been in pro sports. Uh, it's that last part. You never feel a part of the family once they let you go, right? And
Right. Right.
my cousin had posted that. I went on there and commented, and I actually put those last two lines in quotations. And I said, we couldn't even be friends, like like we can't even be friends,
Right.
respectfully, like and That's even me as a former GM of a professional gaming team. When I had to let players go, it was always bittersweet. Like it was never a fun thing to do. Like and sometimes I'll be honest, I dropped the ball and I we may have put out a tweet on social media or anything like that appreciating some of the players, and sometimes we didn't, and we actually sometimes dropped the ball on that where we didn't, and sometimes players felt a certain way about it and things like that. But at the end of the day, there's never a good way sometimes to say goodbye in these situations, and that's basically what it is. I feel like Teaspoon will get a shot somewhere else, maybe not as a head coach um, right off the bat, but I think if she wants to remain in the game, I think somebody give her a spot. I mean, she's had a ton of years of coaching experience at various levels, and this was just rough on her. But I don't feel like she got a fair shake. I will say this: me and A Willie had talked. When she had got the job, and then later on down the line, we realized, that the general manager for the Chicago Sky, and I'm actually looking up his name right now, but he was hired after Teaspoon. And anybody in the professional rank knows that your GM hires the coach.
Right.
So with him being hired second, that meant Spoon was hired by basically the organization, and then they brought in the GM. So this wasn't his coach, and I felt like if things were to go well, maybe she would get extended or whatever. But I feel like now he's going to go get his coach and who he wants to run the team is Jeff Pagliocca. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, that's it.
But basically, he's a former coach and general manager. Former coach and general manager Jeff Wade had left in the middle of the season to take the Toronto Raptors job. And then they hired, where he was replaced by Emery Vantissayer. And then a few weeks after that, they hired Spoon. And
Right.
then the Sky promoted Jeff Pagliocca to the general manager position. So that was a tough situation from the beginning. I mean,
Right.
I don't feel
Right.
like I felt like Spoon, didn't. She probably wasn't gonna get a fair shake. I mean, unless they had already had a prior relationship beforehand. I felt like that was the only way she was gonna get a fair shake. I'm gonna actually play devil's advocate after I hear what A. Willie has to say because there is a coach in the WNBA that is the highest paid coach in the WNBA and came in with a ton of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge and experience, and his team is not no longer in the playoffs. And he's probably still gonna have his job. So I'm gonna touch on that a little bit. But hey, Willie, your thoughts on Teaspoon being out as the head coach at the Sky?
Man, look, you and I have worked in multiple capacities where our job was literally putting a roster together. That means your job is based on wins and losses. I've been in situations before where we won and it still wasn't enough. We still had some issues because there were things that were going on beyond my pay grade um, that ultimately impacted us as we were putting the roster together. So I say this to you: when you're in that capacity, unless you're Greg Popovich or Becky Hammond, someone like that, man, OG, do you really feel like you part of the family when we work in that capacity, man? I don't know if you ever feel like you're part of the family. What you think, man?
Nah, I actually gotta agree with. I mean, because most of the time, depending on the situation, you're always on pins and needles. You know, you
No
you gotta
question.
think that when the Sky hit that 7 game losing streak, I believe that's where it stopped. That throughout that whole stretch, she like you feel the pressure.
No doubt.
And let's be clear, the Sky is not one of the probably most sought out franchises to go play for, with their extensive record of overhauling caliber players. I
Yes.
mean, the list is rather long, and it's just crazy what's going on in Chicago. So you're right. You feel the pressure.
You
The
always feel it.
family, the whole aspect of family is slowly going out the window when you're not winning.
No question. No doubt. Yeah, you never really feel we do it because we love it, and we do it knowing that at some point, no matter again, unless I'm Becky Hammond, Greg Popovich, that caliber of coach, where well, you work with that type of organization, you know that you're hired to be fired, which is different than all of the other positions. It doesn't mean that there isn't any pressure or expectations in those positions, but when you're charged with winning and losing, and now other things are starting to come into the equation when you're being graded beyond the winning and losing. And I feel like some of that is at work here in Chicago because also right after Teaspoon was let go, the social media manager in Chicago was let go as
Mm.
well. And the social media manager had some things to say online in terms of, this. They were the best of times and they were the worst of times. And I quote, when that social media manager posted that, the social media manager also said, Lordy knows this is true in terms of the worst of times. So and there was a lot of fodder around where the organization is and things that are going on outside of is coach doing a good job? Is coach connecting with the players? Because you had players coming out, including Angel Reese, in terms of being the face of the Chicago Sky, saying how much Coach Teaspoon meant to her. The day before they dropped this announcement, you had Ty Young. The Chicago Sky dropped on their social media handles a video of Ty Young talking about how great it is to coach with Coach Weatherspoon, how she's looking forward to next year. And then the very next day, we get this announcement. So clearly, there's a disconnect. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that's going on in Chicago. And I can tell you this, and you know this as well, when your job, again, is to put together all-star caliber, championship caliber rosters. There are a lot of things at work that can help you. There are a lot of things at work that can make your job challenging that the fans that are betting on these games, the fans that are playing fantasy sports, the fans that are tuning in, and the fans that are coming to watching these games in person don't see and don't have a handle of, and they don't know why certain decisions are made. Certain decisions are made or they're not made, and people, you're an idiot. You didn't know what you were doing. And there are a lot of other things at work. There are a lot of other sharks swimming in the water that would determine, do I stay in this water or do I jump out? So, I think we have some things going on in Chicago that, and they're not the only franchise in sports that have other things going on that drive decisions that maybe we agree with, maybe we don't agree with, but we know because we have put teams together. You're only as good as your organization that backs you. And it doesn't matter what type of basketball mind you got. It doesn't matter what type of basketball IQ you have. If you don't have that support and you all aren't walking in lockstep, because let's be honest, man, there are franchises in the WNBA that have not won the WNBA championship. So even when you're walking in lockstep, OG, it's no guarantee that you're going to win a title. Chances are you're not. But I
Right.
can guarantee if you're not walking in lockstep, you ain't winning.
No, I agree. I agree. I remember I had a stretch where I had lost a lot of games in a row, and I had a meeting with my VP, and he basically said, you're in a unique situation because you're the coach and the GM. He said, but typically, the GM hires the coach and fires the coach. He said, so fortunately for you, you can't fire yourself. I'd have to fire you. Needless to say, we went on and finished the season well that year, made the playoffs, and
Yes, sir.
did some things. But
I
definitely
remember
that
you
was,
telling me about that
yeah,
conversation.
that was my dose of that. But to leave off this conversation, Angel Reese had took to social media. I actually had seen her tweet on social media before I seen the actual official release, because Chicago didn't release. They didn't have a release until the next day. It kind of hit all the other heavy hitting media hotlines before they announced it. But I seen her tweet, and she just spoke about how heartbroken she was, and what type of mentor and everything like that she met to her, and it's gonna be tough, because I honestly think Chicago is in they're in a they're in a tough situation because like we've already talked about from a basketball standpoint with her and Cardoso playing together and different things like that, and what's going to really need to be done, even for Reese to elevate her game to where it's a fitting piece in Chicago for them to be successful. But now, you get rookies like that who build strong bonds and relationship with. It wasn't like Spoon was there 2 and 3 years. Like they came in together. Like they went through everything together, and not having a chance to turn that around, that can play with the psyche of a lot of people when you build those type of relationships. So it's going to be interesting to see who they pick. Now we on the lookout for who gets the Sparks job and who gets the Sky job, which is two high profile type situations now,
No
because
question.
Reese has made Chicago relevant. I don't care what anybody says about how she play or whatever. Forget out. You're watching her. Like
Facts.
she's getting your attention just like she's getting everybody else's attention. So it's we definitely gonna be on the lookout for that, and I'm intrigued to see who gets elevated or who they pull out of the dark. Now, leading
Right.
into that, Nate Tibbetts is who I was referring to earlier. He's the head coach for the Phoenix Mercury. And this is time basically for where I will troll, because he is the highest paid coach in the WNBA. He coached not only 3 Olympians, but he has 4 players out of his starting 5 that had championship experience and have a championship. And the best you can do was 19 and 21, and you get eliminated from the playoffs. Phoenix never looked like they never looked engaged throughout the whole entire season. It was an up and down roller coaster for them every game. And like, you don't typically think of somebody like that would be the highest paid coach in the WNBA. And I know this is setting a lot of people on fire. Not me if they really look at it, but it's a man. Like, it's
Right.
a man. It's a male coach in the WNBA who's the highest paid and not the most successful by any stretch. And it's just funny how sometimes people in certain situations get the better end of the stick, and some people get the short end of the stick. And I feel like in situations like that, Nate Tibbetts is in a great spot. And then you look at Spoon, who got the short end of the stick. Not a whole lot to talk about. I just want to throw that out there because that is, you think when you getting somebody like Tibbetts that it would get Phoenix back into some sort of championship mode like they were in the mid 2000s, and where they were in a hunt all the time. And of course, you got Teresa. We don't know if she's in or out yet, and definitely when we find that out, we're gonna talk about that as well. I want to give a goat some grace, and I will say goat because if you know anything about Teresa's career and you watched her from the beginning to the end, the woman was unstoppable, like unstoppable. She got on my nerves at UConn because I was a Pat Summitt fan. I was a Tennessee fan my whole life, but she literally was unstoppable. I mean, you knew, like Gino said it, and I'm going to just end it, and we get into some other things. But at the time where he has Teresa, he said, that's the difference. I have Teresa and other
You
teams
don't.
don't, and you don't. Like, and, unfortunately, for every great player, no matter who it is, if you play long enough, you'll become the villain in some people's eyes. I mean, you won't stay great forever. Like, and especially if you start to fade and different things like that, where obviously mother time, father time, it doesn't discriminate. But
No doubt.
to wrap up this episode, hey Willie, as I always ask you, you got anything you want to get off your chest, man?
Yeah, I do, man. But real quick, I want to say this. Like you said, we were talking about teaspoon, and I said this to you offline before, right? Sometimes when you look at programs that are rebuilding, sometimes they'll take a coach, and that coach will be sort of a culture setter. That coach will instill confidence in certain players, and then they'll jettison that coach and bring someone else in. And I'm really look at how we talk about players and we talk about situations mattering for a lot of players just as much as their talent, meaning who are the teammates, who's the coach, who are the coaches, and what system do they deploy to get the maximum output from their players. Kennedy Carter had a bounce back year. Part of that was opportunity. Part of that was Teaspoon pouring into her and the other players on that roster believing in her, because you would see it during the game, them being encouraging of her. You saw intimate moments with Teaspoon and Kennedy Carter were talking, whether Kennedy Carter did something great or Kennedy Carter did something that where she had to be coached up some more. I'm really interested in the jump that she took and who they bring in to make sure that, because if they decide to keep her, who they bring in to make sure that they get the best out of her. Coaches, situations matter. And sometimes when we have these, whether it's college or pro, we have these coaches and we feel like we can plug and play and put anybody in there and you're going to get the same results. And that's just not how it goes.
No, I agree. I agree. Thanks for that, hey, Willie. Part of my last words for this episode is first, I want to thank everybody who's been tuning in to this new show. Me and A Willie do our best to, give you everything we got and about what's going on in the world, whether it's, like I said, whether it's sports, and we'll get to the movies and everything like that later on. But some things that I just want to catch up. We got the most points scored in the 2-game span, which Nafisa Collier fell into that category. She scored 80 points. But you had Liz Cambage, who ultimately scored 88 points back in 2018. And then she tied with Maya Moore, who did the same thing back in 2014. Right. And that's the most points in a 2-game span, regular season or playoffs. And then what I said about earlier about Aaliyah Boston, she was the first player in WNBA history that averaged 15 points and 15 rebounds in a playoff series. I want to thank some of my top engagers for the week on my Facebook page. You got Latasha Payne, TK Keys, Bill Robinson, Warren Wellman, Philip Deftiad. Hope I'm saying that right. Forgive me. Brent Durden, Darrell Pachenko, Caleb Norman, Connie Dillon, and R.T. Savage. That's just some of the few people who engage in regularly. Like I said, you can find my Facebook page at Ivan D. Curtis, and where I throw out a lot of different things on the daily related to a lot of different things, and feel free to comment. Just keep it clean, and let's have a good time. But truly, it's truly a good time in the WNBA, and I'm glad that the WNBA is trying to take some steps in the right direction to clear some things up about a lot of different things that's been going on. But as I always say, if you don't remember anything, remember, I'm here to laugh, show love, promote, talk sports, movies, joke, and troll. Catch you on the next episode.